All right, I would like to go ahead and call the July 25th Indianapolis Public Library Board to order. Can we have a call roll?
Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Present.
Mr. Bixby,
Present.
Ms. Payne, present, and Ms. Tribble. Here, we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Our next thing we have on our agenda is public comment. I don't believe we have anybody for public comment tonight. I'm still. All right. We'll go ahead and go to the Dear CEO letter. Do you have any of those? Next correspondence is for anything for the board.
Just what's going on.
The one letter.
Yes.
All right, next we have the approval of minutes for the executive session, regular and special meetings. Actually, the regular meeting that was conducted on June the 27th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of regular meeting held on June the 27th?
Second.
The minutes have been moved and second. Is there any other discussion? Go ahead and have a call vote.
Mr. Biederman,
Approved.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble. Approved. Thank you.
The next thing we have here, committee reports. First, we'll have the finance. Dr. Payne.
Carolyn.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
The first thing we have on our agenda is item 5A on page 24. It's the treasurer's report for. We're starting on page 24 of your documents. The treasurer's report is for June 2022. It's pages 24 through 42. I'll go to page 25, which is our recap of the operating fund revenues and expenditures for June. June is halfway through our fiscal year. So we have revenues year to date of $25,800,000. This is 2.5% more revenue than we had this time last year. Last year we had $25,160,000. Then on our expenditures year to date, our expenditures are $21,500,000. We've spent 40% of our budget at the end of June. And last year, this is 6.6% higher expenditures than this time last year. Last year's expenditures were $20,170,000. You're still in the middle of the recovering, coming out of the pandemic. Actually, probably in the middle of the Delta variant, I recall. Page 26 are the charts that just show comparison over the last 4 years. So we're pretty much on target. We would expect to be spending some more money this year. And pages 27 through 29 are the detailed line items for our operating fund. And everything looks in order, nothing alarming at this point during the year. And the rest of the pages, page 30 is our cash projections. Just want to draw your attention to that real quick. This is an important tool finance uses to see our cash low points during the year. And I did do an analysis recently. Usually at the end of April, that ending balance is approximately our low cash balance for the year. And this year it was 24 million was our low balance. So, and the rest of the report is there for you to peruse. Are there any questions, specific questions about the June treasurer's report? I do need a motion if you guys approve it.
Yeah, is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report for June?
So moved. Second. Yes, Mr. Biederman,
Approved.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble. Approved. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is our budget briefing report. It's item 5B. It starts on page 43. Just real quickly, we do a budget briefing here so you guys can see our budget and review it. And if you have any questions in the coming weeks, you can contact Pat or myself. We did go through this budget in the July 19th Finance Committee meeting. The public hearing will be at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, August 9th. So there will be a little bit more detailed presentation at that point. And at the August 22nd board meeting is where the board will vote on approval for the budget. So I'll just go in real quick. This is the 2023 proposed budget. This year we did a zero-based budgeting. We did request the departments to actually look at their accounts. In previous years, we had been budgeting perhaps on top of the budget and not doing zero-based because of certain things we're focusing our expenditures on next year. I asked the department, the directors to see, kind of reduce their budgets and see what they really needed. So we would have money to put in different object lines. So on page 43 here, we have the operating fund budget. We have the funds budgeted for 23 compared to 2022. So operating is going to be budgeted at 55 million, which is up 5.9% over 2022. The maximum growth quotient this year was 5%. So this does allow us to base a little bit, budget a little higher than in past years. And then the debt fund is listed at 16 million. Those cover our required debt payments for 23. We have a library improvement reserve. We're planning to budget 250,000 there, and rainy day $1 million. Also included in this packet on page 44 is the list of the bonds that are still outstanding and what those payments are. For LERF, we are budgeting 250,000 to account for the accounting software upgrade that is being postponed to 2023. And then $1 million in rainy day are for potential construction and consulting legal costs for upcoming renovation projects, which would end up being reimbursed once the funds are received. On page 45 are the list of assumptions. I wanted to point out that the largest part of our budget continues to be salaries and benefits. And the planned overall increase in this preliminary budget number is 16.85%, or 5 million, that we're planning to focus and increase our salaries and benefits. This includes money that was set aside for salary adjustments to bring staff a little closer to market. And we're in the middle of reviewing. We will start immediately reviewing in detail how that is going to be planned out, and that the salaries, although we were approving the budget right now during our budget process, the actual approval of how that money is dispersed to salaries also goes to the board in November during the annual meeting. You should be getting the process of how that increase will be spread out. Health insurance, we've also had to increase that by 8.5%. We're seeing medical increases this year. And wellness, we've also more than doubled our wellness budget so that we can provide that to our employees.
So there's no anticipated increase in the staff with the increase of this as well, or?
I'm on the salaries.
No, I'm sorry, on the benefits. When you're talking about health insurance is going up, it seems like everything is going up.
We just met with our consultant Apex Benefits last week to review if there will be an increase, and we're hoping to mitigate that. So we probably won't know till September as final numbers come in, but we set up a self-insurance fund last year. Actually, we're using it this year. So we're hoping to use that fund to help mitigate the rises in health insurance costs to employees. So yeah, we're looking at that.
Carol, let
Yes.
me ask you something about the merit increase. Where it says assumed salary merit increase for 2023 of 5%. That means every single person? who works, who, is there anybody gonna be left out?
I mean, our past policies is almost everyone gets that unless someone has a poor annual
Okay.
review. So I can't say everyone,
But it'll be based on,
yes. And since the budget comes out of the finance department, I put assumed in there because it's not, I don't feel like it's my job to decide on what the final increase is. So, but we've set money aside for a 5%. And that 5% was set aside on all positions. So it's there. And then, yes, the second bullet point says there's an additional 2.5 million reserved for salary adjustments and new positions. So I'm not the one to say how that gets, attributed, but the money is there in this budget. So go back to the health insurance. Yes, the big total health insurance budget's going up 8.5%. That doesn't necessarily mean staff contributions are going to have to go up 8.5%. The rest are just kind of routine items on pages 46. And then on page 47 through 48 and 49, this lists the detailed lines of our operating budget for you to look at. I mean, there's not too much. We've looked at historic numbers and these are pretty good budget numbers, and we feel like there shouldn't be any overages. This covers next year. Are there any other questions on the briefing report? I guess I should look at page 50 also. We attached this year a long-term projection that was presented at the Finance Committee meeting on July 19th. Just to kind of show you where our ending fund balances are going. We had built up a fund balance during the pandemic, and that's allowing us to actually put some money towards salaries along with some budget reallocation. So if there's any questions on these, feel free to contact me. And then page 51 and 52 is the budget calendar, just so you have that for your information. And if there's no more questions, I'll move on to the next item. Okay. The next item is on page 53. It's a board action request for approval of our liability insurance for the policy period 2022 through 2023. It's resolution 40-2022. And this was presented, Gallagher is our insurance broker, and they came to the June Finance Committee meeting and did an in-depth presentation, and Finance Committee's in attendance here tonight, so they've heard this. And then the actual final numbers came in recently, and that was presented at the July 19th Finance Committee meeting. And there was a unanimous vote to take this to the full board with approval by the Finance Committee meeting. And just real short, this is the insurance coverage for various exposures related to torts, theft or damage to and destruction of assets, errors and omissions, job-related illnesses or injuries to employees, natural disasters, and cybersecurity incidents. The library contracts through Gallagher, who analyzes and recommends coverage. And the goal of the coverage is to ensure that settled claims from these risks do not exceed the commercial insurance coverage. The library risk management required disclosures for financial statement purposes include that there were no significant reductions in insurance by major category of risk. The premium is actually going up 12.45% over the previous year. And that's due to inflation and increase in square foot coverage as more buildings are being opened, an additional building, and requesting more robust limits on crime policies. Page 54 is just our coverage over the past years and shows fluctuations. Page 55 shows the premiums we paid in 2021 that expired July 31st And then the premiums that we're proposing to pay for 2022, total increase of 12.45%. These increases are covered in the current budget that was just mentioned to the board. Does anyone have any questions on those? If not, it'll need a vote.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 40-2022?
So moved.
Second.
I think we got it
All
covered.
right. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? All right, hearing none.
Yes. Mr. Peterman,
Approved.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next we have the Diversity Policy and Human Resources Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am our acting HR director is not here today, but she has given some high-level updates that was shared at the committee meeting last week. Progress continues on working on the working on the reporting tool that she's been working on for employees. They're expected, practice continues, the policy, the work on that continues. The acting HR director and our chief diversity officer have planned a tour of the branches and departments to talk about the climate improvement report and recommendations. Primarily, in terms of the committee report, we have been focused again on the CEO search. And as you may remember, the close date for the initial posting was June 26th. And so I have asked Karen Miller, who is the principal with Bradbury Miller Associates, to give us, to report to the entire board the status, the progress, the recommendations going forward. And these are all items that were discussed at the committee meeting last week. I think we all agreed that it would be good to have Ms. Miller here to update the entire board and to give them the opportunity to ask questions or clarify as we continue to move forward. So Karen?
Good evening, board members. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you this evening. I'm Karen Miller, and I know I've met some of you already, so I won't spend a lot of time on that, but I do have a PowerPoint to kind of walk through the process, just to give you all kind of a reminder of where things started and then talk a little bit about where we're headed. So I'm going to share my screen. Are you able to see this okay?
Yes.
Oh, terrific. Starting off with a bang in terms of technology, right? So let me advance the screen here. So I thought what I would do is start by reviewing the timeline, just to kind of give you, catch everybody up and let you know what we've done so far and where things have gone. So in February, we were hired, Bradbury Miller Associates were hired by you all, the Board of Trustees, to assist you in the search process for the CEO. And then in March and April, we held many meetings and focus groups. We did feedback surveys that were distributed electronically to a wide variety of individuals, including the public. We drafted and approved a timeline for the search. And then we were able to access the climate study once it was released in late March. Then in May, we got the position announcement approved by the search committee, and Joe very wonderfully was able to create a web page for your website to outline the search process. And I thought that was a wonderful tool to provide to the community in Indianapolis. And then we got the CEO position posted. We distributed it to a number of library-specific posting sites, listservs, et cetera, during that time. And then, of course, in June and July, we did the recruiting campaign. We did a newsletter distribution. We hit social media did our best to reach out and get the word out about the job as many places as possible in the library communities around the United States. The position closed at the end of June, and then we commenced some meetings to discuss the candidate pool with DPHR and the HR staff, Tisha in particular. We just had some conversations to kind of talk about where things are and where they were headed. So, and then next steps are and I'm going to hit some numbers here for you in a minute, but I also want to kind of give you a sense of what the direction is next. We had a total of 13 applicants for this position, and 6 were qualified under the guidelines based on the State Library of Indiana. So after reviewing the candidate pool and having many discussions, as I mentioned, we decided that it was important to do our best to expand the requirements, lower the minimum requirements, address the hiring salary range, and then try to redevelop the announcement based on more information, especially the climate report. We really thought that was important to kind of try to expand on that from that perspective, which is something we're working on right now, rewriting that position announcement, and then hopefully expanding the candidate pool through all of these methods. Now, just to give you a sense of what the numbers were, these were for the survey responses, the surveys that we conducted at the very beginning of the process. We had 263 staff and stakeholders respond. Over 1,800 people in the community respond to the survey. So we used all of that information to help us draft the announcement, but we're going to use it to help us draft it again. As you can see, our website where we post the position was viewed 817 times. Our newsletter reaches 1,738 subscribers, all library professionals. So that's some of the contact information, that's part of the contact information, but it's, I wanted to kind of break it up so it was easy to look at. But also we contacted people through 59 different postings, listservs, job sites, which are all, they have a wide variety of subscribers, but to the best of my knowledge, was able to count at least 16,000 people across all 50 states that should have access to the places where we've posted those positions. And then of course, we also did 304 individual emails as part of the recruiting as well. And that doesn't include our nominations. So I would add another 20 to that actually. So more like 324. All of that taken into consideration, we ended up receiving, like I said, a total of 13 applicants with 6 qualified applicants. So I know you have a busy night tonight, so I want to keep going here, but I will take questions when we're done, or when I'm done sharing this information. I'm sure you're wondering, so it's fine to repost the position, but what does that gain us? How are we going to do things differently? Here's what we're proposing. I believe the DPHR committee is already on board with this revised hiring salary range, which we do think is probably the most important and key component to broadening your candidate pool. I did receive an email just yesterday about someone who's interested in potentially applying for the position and mentioned that they felt that the original hiring salary was low. And I've had a couple other indirect comments. I would say maybe 2 or 3, but bear in mind, very few people respond to our emails. So they certainly don't volunteer that information necessarily. But what little feedback we did get was definitely pointed toward the salary range. And then also we would like to recommend a revised minimum qualifications. I had extensive conversation with the person responsible for certification. Her name's Sherry, at the State Library of Indiana. And she helped me fully understand what we can require in terms of, or how we could lower those qualifications so that you could at least have broader candidate pool. And these recommendations are based on what she shared with me in terms of getting temporary certification for 3 years before actually having to have a fully, having to meet all of the qualifications that are required under Indiana State Library's certification program. So in all reality, the lowest you could probably post of anything would be 3 years professional library experience, but we felt like that was actually a little too low. So that's why I'm recommending 5 years professional library experience. The MLS is obviously preferred, but we could consider non-MLS applicants if they're willing to complete the degree within 3 years of hire. That's how long they could have temporary certificates before needing to have that degree in place. I would also recommend preferring some experience. So preferring experience as a public library director, preferring experience in a large library system, and preferring experience possibly with managing trauma-informed care in the workplace, just simply because it seems like a good thing to request. And honestly, it could probably be easily requested in just about any library system. So I'm going to stop sharing and open it up for questions. I want to be able to answer whatever questions you have to the best of my ability, and hopefully that information has helped kind of outline what we're looking at here. Any questions?
Karen, pardon me, thank you for the update. Can you talk a little bit more about BMA and the approach that you're going to take in the extended search in terms of, I know we're going to expand the posting, but will you be taking some different approaches and perspectives for the recruitment and marketing process?
Well, we certainly want to reach out to the places we have before, because we want to make sure people see the differences and the changes. I think that based on some of the feedback I've already started getting anecdotally, I can tell you that we've already heard from 3 different people who were paying attention and noticed that you had made a change on the website, on Indianapolis's Public Library's website, saying that they are interested in considering this position if the salary increase goes up. I've had 3 different comments about that. But in the meantime, we would certainly broaden the candidate pool in terms of reaching out to even more people, trying to reach out to even more people in Indiana this time. And then certainly, I think we should start posting the position in some nonprofit sites, some places where we might get people who are willing to expand their education. Just bearing in mind, we want to make sure it's really clear in the announcement that they're going to need to get another degree. You may want to make arrangements, be thinking about whether you want to help subsidize that as part of a package. But I'm just throwing that out there for now. That's not part of any kind of recruiting technique. But I would say that certainly looking beyond just traditional library, we'll post it as many places as we can find to post it where we think people will be looking. I still want to do more research on that, but certainly if there's any recommendations in terms of nonprofits, other places where you think that there might be people willing to consider getting an additional degree, we can certainly tackle that as well. But did I fully answer your question, Hope?
I think so.
Okay.
So I guess I have 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
So the 13 that went down to the 6, if you change these qualifications, how many of the 13 does that bring in?
I am sorry to say that none of the 7 that did not meet the qualifications still would not meet them. They have 0 library experience in terms of years of experience. And the best we can do is someone with, like I said, the most minimum would be 3 years public library experience to meet that certification by the time they get through the 3 years of temporary certification. So.
Okay. And then how many qualified candidates is a good number to start with?
How many? I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
How many qualified candidates is a good number to start with? If 6 isn't enough, where's the line?
I think that's really your decision. To me, there have been times when we've had smaller pools, and certainly in the last year and a half, I would say we're seeing smaller pools in general. So it's really up to the organization to decide what is too few, in my opinion. I had a library system that I was working with, much smaller, on the East Coast about a year and a half ago, that only had about 5 applicants that were qualified. It was a tough search. It was a tough sell. They'd been moving through a lot of library directors very quickly, which made it more complicated to find people willing to take the kind of risk that can lead to. But they were able to select a fantastic new library leader from that group of 5. But it's really, you have to decide for you what is considered a national search pool for you. I would guess that you'd like to see 10 at least. I don't know if you'll see more than 10, but we're going to do everything in our power to try to broaden that search and see what kind of results we can get.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just have one quick question as well. So as we look at potentially expanding the number of candidates within the pool, what is the biggest, I guess, benefit? I know that some people were apprehensive because of the salary, and the people that you had some of those discussions with, what were some of their qualifications that would have required them to even look at a higher salary? You know what I mean? Or have an argument to say there should be a higher salary?
Well, one of the people that I was in contact with today expressed, and bear in mind, he's been the leader of 2 very, very large urban library systems in the recent past. The salary was the number one concern for him. I spoke with another person who is currently a library director in the state of Indiana and has large library experience in her past. She also expressed that for the kind of challenges that this person would be undertaking, salary would need to be strongly considered. And also there was some concern that there might be, I don't know that she actually had the opportunity, well, I shouldn't say had the opportunity, but definitely hadn't read through the full climate report, and maybe didn't fully understand like the work that has been done so far. And I think she has already expressed interest in applying for the job if we reopen, which looks like that's the plan. So I was able to kind of explain to her what all the excitement, like it's an exciting time for you in a way, like you're on the upswing and you're headed toward great things. And this is an opportunity for someone to really take things in a brand new direction. And we want to make sure that the announcement reflects that hope.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I know you can't come right out and ask someone what their racial identity is because it's against certain laws. But how do you, and this is for the public because you already explained this to me at the committee meeting. How do you make sure that the applicants understand our interest in someone who has a lot of experience in diversity, inclusiveness, and can, other than just their persona and face being black or brown, I just will come out and say that because that's exactly what I'm interested in. Their experience also is critical to me. So how is that expressed?
Well, we do have an anonymous EEO survey that we provide for all of our searches. It is voluntary. So we cannot require someone to complete it because again, we are not able to require someone to disclose that kind of information. Race and ethnicity and, there's a whole list of, disabilities, those are things we cannot legally collect, but we can certainly seek experience in DEI issues and certainly seek people who have experience in leading discussion and training and, evaluation and, maybe not climate studies specifically, but certainly ask them specifically for what their background is, what experience they have. And usually we get a lot of really good information that way because people want to share how they've had those experiences. And, we want to give them that opportunity to share that experience as well. So that's definitely where we start. Not every diverse candidate is visually diverse, obviously. So that is another challenge, is that if you want to know how someone is diverse, it's an awkward and complicated question, but at the same time, we hope that people will feel comfortable divulging that information as well, but we certainly cannot ask them to.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Thanks, Pat.
Any other questions? So, Karen, thank you for coming. Thank you for outlining the work of both your firm as well as our staff and the DPHR committee and the community search committee that we have put together over the last several months. There's been a lot of work and a lot of energy and effort, and I want to say thanks to everyone at this point. And this is different than we expected, but one of the things that we said was that we want to find the right candidate. We also want this to be a national competitive search. And the board has expressed the desire to have at least 3 of the candidates passed along for interview by the entire board. So we think that it's important that we have been diligent about combing the market and the available candidates out there, and even looking at what we as a library system have to offer to be attractive in that way. So just wanted to make sure that the board is updated. We also want to stress that the candidates who have been who are qualified at this point are continuing to be included and considered as part of the process. We want to broaden the pool, and we want to make sure that this is a fully competitive process.
Yes. So would you consider what we are doing now as lowering our expectations?
You know, that's a really good question. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, it's, let me just say 2 things. From our first conversation with BMA, we asked about, well, actually, there were 2 things. The first question was, do you think we'll be able to attract candidates given all that's going on in our environment right now? And how will that impact the search? The second one remind me of your question again, because I got a little bit off. The second question was, are we lowering our standards? So the search committee, the community search committee, when we reviewed the qualifications, and the main 3 qualifications are library science, a master's in library science, library certification, and 10 years of management experience. So as a board and a committee, we actually had asked our attorneys, is there any latitude or flexibility with those qualifications? And we got an initial response, and we thought, because there are questions related to funding that could be impacted for the library, we went ahead with the higher, with those qualifications as stated for you. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing that I was going to say that Bradbury Miller told us in our interview is if we wanted to have a broader candidate pool, we might look at relaxing those and to pull in more candidates who would be able to qualify for the process. I think that if we have candidates who come in and do not meet those standards today, we will have to weigh that. And that, one of the examples I've been giving is that we said 10 years of experience, and maybe it's 8 years of experience. I mean, there could be someone who is in the process of getting an MLS or available to do certification. And so I think one thing that the search committee, as well as the DPR committee and the board will have to look at is the weight of those folks' qualifications compared to the other skills and abilities that we are looking for. So, and either way, we're going to have to get there at some point. I mean, it's clear that the state requires that. And so I think it allows us to look at a broader group of candidates who may or may not, who may be close to those qualifications, and then we can decide in the selection process how weighty those qualifications are.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, sorry, if I might add, we're not changing the requirements. The stated requirements in the original ad indicated that it was someone who was eligible to receive a library director certification 1, or could be. And so the process that Karen just described would be meeting those requirements for that certification by utilizing an interim or temporary certification process. And so we are not changing the requirements. We're changing how they might become qualified. They might not be qualified on day 1, but the state administrative code does allow you to apply for interim or short-term temporary certification. And so the ad as originally provided did provide for that. This is making it very explicit that would be eligible. Someone eligible who could be eligible can apply. So there's no change in the qualifications. It is more making it very explicit about who can qualify for those qualifications.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions? Well, Karen, thank you. We appreciate, look forward to working with you going forward. We are going to have a new timeline, and we will probably have that ready over the next week or so once we've figured out the timing of the reposting and all of the activities that follow that.
Thank you for your time this evening. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. That concludes it. Okay.
All right, next we have facilities. Adam, I'll go over a couple of things as he's walking up there. So the facilities committee met on July 12th. We discussed a few things all the way from the updates of the XBE certification process, some discussion about the maintenance agreements, negotiations with, I guess, the condition assessment. So we talked over a few things in the board packet for everyone to review. It looked like we have one resolution, that's one here that was pretty much approved.
Two.
Oh, two of them.
Two, yep. My update should be brief. So the first one, item 7A in your packet is resolution 41-2022. It's an approval to award a services contract for fixtures, furniture, and equipment for the Fort Bend branch project. NDPL staff worked with Ratio Architects to get a specification out for the FFE package for the new branch. It was advertised. If you read through the packet, it goes through the dates that it was advertised. It was sent out to, I'm going to throw some more numbers at you, 23 individual firms and 10 groups, associations, or other email lists. 5 of those were XBEs of the 23 individual firms. 5 firms attended the pre-bid conference. 3 of those were XBEs. 2 firms submitted bids. Both of those were XBEs, and of course, 1 was selected. So for this one, it was commercial office environments. They've done business with the library before. They're satisfactorily. Their initial was a little over the budget, but there were some alternates that deducted some costs, such as chairs like these only have a padded seat, not a padded back. It helps with cleaning, not only speed, but thoroughness. So we subtracted some money for that and some such alterations. In total, the project is $497,621.98. This is just barely under the budget of $499,500, and this is budgeted out of the bond issue for the Fort Bend project.
Is there a motion to approve resolution 41-2022? Yeah, I'll say. All right, anything else?
Yes. Mr. Peterman.
Approved.
Mr. Bixby.
Approved.
Ms. Payne.
Approved.
And Ms. Tribble. Approved. Thank you.
All right. The next item, similar the topic. Instead of fixtures and furniture, this is a specialty subset for shelving, end panels, and canopies. The resolution 42-22, approval to award a services contract for shelving, end panels, and canopies for Fort Van. Again, we advertise to the same list because they do provide, same companies provide the two different types of products. 23 individuals with 10 groups, 6 of those were XBEs. 5 attended, 4 were the same with 1 different. Bradford instead of, I forget who. 3 of those were XBEs that attended the pre-bid conference. 2 companies submitted, both of those were XBEs, and of course 1 was awarded. This one was to Office Works, who actually bid on the other one. They came in low on this one. Total project cost is $193,572 out of a budget of $200,000. So we were 2 for 2 this evening for being under budget. And this one is also out of the same bond issue for Fort Bend. Any questions?
Is there a motion to approve resolution 42-2022?
I'll move.
Yes. All right.
Mr. Readerman,
Approved.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
and Ms. Tribble. Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Library Foundation update, Bethany Warner.
Hi there, good evening all. Just a quick update from the Library Foundation. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Bethany Warner. I'm the Vice President for the Library Foundation. So first, I want to thank the Library Board for approving the naming of the J. Steve and Donna D. Talley Community Room at the East 38th Street branch. On July 15th, we had approximately 70 guests, including Dr. Murtada, government officials, and community partners who attended the dedication ceremony. We also want to thank Naomi Allensworth and the East 38th Street staff, the communications department, the facilities department, and many others for making this celebration such a success. As you may know, the East 38th Street branch is one of the many branches across the NDPL system that has ceramic book tiles. These tiles can be inscribed with your name or the name of a loved one as part of a gift to the Library Foundation. And in conjunction with the dedication of the J. Steve and Donna D. Talley Community Room, the Library Foundation is offering these tiles at a deeply discounted rate at the East 38th Street branch only, now through September 19th. You do have an order form in the board materials if you're interested in seeing more about that. We will be sending this information out to donors who live in the East 38th Street area, and that information is available at the branch as well. The Library Foundation also wants to thank more than 100 donors who made gifts in the last month, and our top corporate and foundation donors in this period were as follows: AARP Indiana, American Honda Motor Company, Downtown Optimist Foundation, the Indianapolis Indians, the Nicholas Noyes Jr. Memorial Foundation, Inc., RGA Business Interiors, and the Allstate Foundation. If you have the opportunity to thank any of those donors or any other donors to the Library Foundation, that would be great. And in this past month, the Library Foundation has provided more than $38,000 in program support to the library, including 1,000 books before kindergarten, aquarium maintenance and programming, and Fall Fest 2022. That's my update. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Warner. All right, next thing we have on our agenda is a report of the interim CEO.
Thank you. Good evening, board members and guests. The staff of the Indianapolis Public Library continues to focus on our values of racial equity, adaptability, communication, diversity, and inclusiveness. A meeting was held on July 7th, 2022 with the Central Indiana Community Foundation, staff members Leah Nemi and Pamela Ross, to discuss the Indianapolis Public Library Climate Healing Update document, which I have attached. The document was created in conjunction with NDPL and NDPL Foundation to share with CICF and certain funders. The document outlines actions that have been taken by NDPL based on the ICE Miller recommendations. We were asked about next steps in respect to the funding pause, and the staff members indicated that they would take this to their president, who is Brian Payne, and would get back with us regarding releasing funds and releasing the pause. Staff member Jordan Hunt shared the results of a research study on staff trauma in urban libraries, and I have also included that link to that study if you'd like to look at it. He shared that with the staff of the library, and we appreciated that. Based on that study and the feedback from staff members, we've scheduled a system-wide town hall for Wednesday, July 27th, 2022. And we will discuss trauma as it relates to our work and how to deal with it in a healthy manner. The constitutional carry law went into effect on July 1 of 2022, and so a permit is no longer required to carry a handgun outside your home or business in Indiana. This has caused many staff members and patrons to be concerned about their safety based on recent mass shootings. A meeting was held with Sergeant Kim Evans, Community Relations, Downtown District of IMPD. She shared with us free training that is available to us, verbal de-escalation, situational awareness class, and active shooter training. System-wide active shooter training is scheduled for Friday, August the 12th at Central Library, and we are going to continue to make our environment a positive one. Next, we will have our DEI officer, Keisha Hughes, speak about the DICE Alliance, Diversity, Inclusion, Culture, and Equity.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Keisha Hughes, the DEI officer, and we are actually in the process of kicking off what we are calling our DICE Alliance, as Michelle mentioned, and DICE stands for Diversity, Inclusion, Culture, and Equity. And you can see kind of up there what each of the letters stands for and what each of the terms represent. So the DICE Alliance will combine the best of both the Equity Council and the GO Team, which are two previous employee resource groups that we had. We opened the application process to everyone because we want it to be as inclusive as possible. And we received 28 applicants, and they represent racially diverse groups. And they also represent diversity in terms of the branches they work at and the positions that they have. So our first meeting is in the morning tomorrow, July 26th. And during that meeting, we plan to define the exact roles and responsibilities of the organization, because we want to have more input on what the Alliance will look like, which I think with some of the past groups, there was maybe not as much clarity on what everyone's role would be. So we hope to define that tomorrow. And we are largely focused on accountability regarding recommendations that are spelled out in the climate report, but other areas of focus may be establishing meaningful goals and metrics, providing input on policies and procedures, coordinating speakers and webinars, leading book discussions, community engagement, and things like that. Obviously, people have a lot going on with their actual jobs, so we don't want to create too much more burden on them. We want to be very respectful of the time commitment. So we're currently looking at 5 to 6 hours a month being the max, which includes the monthly meeting as well. The executive committee members, they are enthusiastic supporters of this, which I really appreciate. And Adam has kindly agreed to be one of our executive co-sponsors as well. And really, DICE is everybody's responsibility. So it's not just a management thing. It is everybody's responsibility, because it's a very important step in helping us to improve the climate of the organization for everyone. So we'll give you more information as it all becomes more defined as we go along. But Do you have any questions so far?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Sounds very exciting. Can board members sit in on your meetings? Shut up and listen. And if you don't feel that it would add negative dynamics to the process, I maybe you should ask the group.
I think it's worth a discussion after we get up and running.
Okay.
So everyone can kind of fill out their comfort level, because there has to be a trust building period,
Of
I think,
course.
as well. So we all feel comfortable with each other. But I'll say it's not off the table, but I think there needs to be a discussion about it.
Understood. Thank you.
Can we get a copy of the dice sheet?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
Yes. We have resolution 43-2022. This is to approve finances, personnel, and travel resolutions. So this is a procedural action. It appoints new salaried hires, approves new hourly hires, compensation changes, resignations, travel, and financial related claims and warrants. And all of the financial impact has been accounted for in the 2022 budget. So it's nothing that we haven't already determined.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution 43-2020?
So moved.
Is there a second? Right. Angie, can we have a call roll, please?
Mr. Peterman.
Approved.
Mr. Bixby.
Approved.
Ms. Payne.
Approved.
And Ms. Tribble. Approved. Thank you.
And then there's any other CEO updates.
No, thank you.
All right, so there's no unfinished business, there's no new business. Discussion and agenda building, this time is made available for discussion items not on the agenda, which are interests of the which are the interest to the library board members, and the opportunity is given to suggest items to be included on future library board meetings or agendas. Is there anything that need to be suggested for any other additional board meetings for August 2022?
Now, I just want to commend Michelle on the outstanding job that you're doing under challenges. So thank you very much for your hard work. Thank you.
All right, so it looks like our next board meeting is going to be August the 22nd. It looks like it's going to be here at the LSC at 6:30. Is there any other business for discussion tonight?